My best friend turned into a scarecrow. We first met her between the unripe corn stalks on old Bearded Abel's farm. She was wearing a ratty old cardigan and holding 4 little ears of corn between arms as skinny as sticks, with freckles spattered across every inch of skin and a wild mane of hair as bright and red as flames. Sitting in the dirt, she stared up at us with strikingly green eyes and grinned meekly, caught red-handed in her act of petty theft. August was the son of old Bearded Abel and the leader of the Falkland Raiders Club. He marched up to the red-headed girl and hefted the rusted shotgun he had snuck out of his father's shed and brought to the clubhouse last week. "You're trespassing on the Raiders' property," he announced, in a voice as deep as his prepubescent vocal cords would allow. "Surrender your spoils, or die to the hands of justice." The girl, to all of our surprise, didn't shrink back or scream. Instead, she just giggled, a sound strangely reminiscent of the chirping of sparrows. "You're funny," she said. "Who are the Raiders?" August paused, slightly taken aback. Then he furrowed his brow and stepped up to her. "You sit in the presence of the mighty Falkland Raiders Club," he announced. "The Grand Leader Sir Augustus, and my fearless compatriots, Rex the Fists of Fury and Marina, the eagle-eyed scout." Standing beside me, Rex let out his best attempt at a battle cry. His voice cracked at the end of it. I snickered. The red-headed girl burst into laughter. Far away in the fields, a flock of crows seemed to echo her voice. The girl stood up and thrust out her stolen ears of corn to August. "Brave Sir Augustus," she said, with an air of splendor to match August's, "I offer you my spoils of the evening as tribute, and make a humble request. I would like to join the Raiders, to stand and fight for the justice of all." August smiled crookedly. He took the ears of corn, and then glanced back at us. "Well, this is unexpected. What do we think, compatriots?" Rex shrugged. "Whatever you say, Captain, I vote yes," I said. "I like her, and she doesn't smell like the two of you do." The girl laughed like the crows, who laughed back in the distance. It was a contagious sort of laughter, because Rex snorted too. August tried to glare at me, but he couldn't quite hide his grin before he turned back to the red-headed girl. "Very well," he announced. "From this day forth, you are sworn into the Falkland Raiders Club. What shall we call you, compatriot?" "Name's Vivian," she said. "But you may call me Vivi, Reaper in the Sunset." Vivi was like a breath of fresh air into our lives. To be frank, the Falkland Raiders Club had only come together because August and I had nothing to do for most of the day than feed livestock and stare at the fields all day, and even though Rex's family cared enough to send him to school, no one at his school seemed to like him enough to call him a friend. The Raiders Club was a hobby born out of a complete and utter boredom, punctuated only by harvest season and the occasional rampaging boar. We were always starved for something new, something to put a dash of color in our lives. Vivi was that color. When we patrolled old Bearded Abel's fields and pretended the rows of corn were rows of soldiers sent by the Dark Lord Abraxas, Vivi declared that we would attack with the south wind, and spurred us into battle with such vigor that Rex trampled down a dozen soldiers before realizing the soldiers were really just corn stalks. On a rainy day, she discovered the dull, rusted blade of a sickle buried in the mud and spent hours in the clubhouse wetting it to a silver shine, then flinging it like a throwing knife at the back wall where it stuck with a thunk so loud that the rest of us couldn't help but be impressed. She taught August how to properly hold a gun, much to his chagrin, and taught me how to spot red-tailed hawks, which we quickly took to calling the demonic eyes of Abraxas and swore to destroy someday. She was always the earliest to arrive at the clubhouse and the latest to leave, and when we asked her if her parents ever made her feed the pigs in the morning and come back early for dinner, she blew it off and said nobody could control her. Needless to say, I was entranced by the Reaper in the Sunset. She was a genius, and a piece of fantasy rolled into one, and I wanted nothing more than to adventure with her, day after day. One day, before the sun had even risen, my parents began to squabble downstairs, and soon I heard the sound of something breaking. That was my cue to leave. I dressed myself, slipped out my window, and climbed over the fence into old Bearded Abel's farm. I squinted in the first haze of dawn and walked between the pumpkin patches until I reached the old watchtower, now painted with the crest of the Falkland Raiders Club. When I climbed up the ladder to the clubhouse, I found Vivi sitting on the floor, whittling at a long stick with the blade of her new sickle and sweeping the chips into neat piles. "Vivi?" I said. "What are you doing here so early?" There was a momentary look of surprise on her face, and then she smiled. "What are you doing here so early, Marina?" "I dunno. Just felt like one of those days." Vivi laughed, that chirping sparrow laugh. "Well, I guess I also felt like one of those days too." I sat on the floor of the clubhouse and watched Vivi slice the bark off the stick in curly ribbons for a bit. "Do your mom and dad know you're here?" I asked. "I haven't got a mom and dad." I blinked. Vivi looked up at me and laughed. "You should see the look on your face." I didn't know what to say. In the end, I said nothing. "It's pretty all right," she said. "Not having people who make you feed pigs in the morning and come home early for dinner." Vivi brushed the pale chips of wood off her ratty green cardigan, the one she always wore that had accumulated plenty of new stains on our pretend adventures. She didn't look sad or lonely, which made the reaper in the sunset even more remarkable. "When did you get here?" I asked. "I didn't leave." "Didn't leave?" Home is a lonely place. Sometimes the clubhouse is better, because it reminds me I have friends. I gawked at her, but she only drew her sickle down the stick again and again. Soon enough, she had a long curved rod with notches on either end. I watched as she tied a taut length of twine between the notches. Satisfied with her work, she handed it to me. "A bow," she said, "for shooting down the demonic eyes of Abraxas. Vivi, want to learn how to shoot it?" She thrust 2 arrows with stone tips and crow feather fletches into my hands and launched into an archery lesson. By the time morning broke and August climbed up into the watchtower, I'd pockmarked the wall of the clubhouse with tiny nicks from the homemade arrows. "Good morning, brave Sir Augustus," Vivi declared. August turned to me and narrowed his eyes. "What are you doing here so early?" I shot an arrow into the seam between 2 wooden planks in the wall, then held up my bow for him to see. "Vivi made another addition to the armory. We can take on the demonic eyes now." "I thought we were going to take out the eyes with my gun." "Your gun's empty, August. Don't talk like you've got the guts to steal real shotgun shells from your dad, too." He huffed and crossed his arms. "Well, that still doesn't explain why you're here so early." "What if I am?" "Vivi's always early." "Yeah, Sir Augustus," Vivi said. "We were just having an early morning training session. Marina's a great shot. We'll take down the demonic eyes in no time." August huffed again and kicked the piles of wood chippings on the floor. "Clean up the mess," he said. "We're going patrolling today." Vivi often spent the night in the clubhouse, it seemed. I snuck out early in the mornings more often now, making a habit of filling the feeders before the pigs were even awake and setting out for the clubhouse as the sun came up. At first I thought it was because I didn't want Vivi to feel lonely in the clubhouse by herself, but later I realized that maybe I was the one who felt lonely. Vivi wasn't bossy like August, nor was she careless like Rex. We rapidly grew closer than I had ever been with the others, and I was grateful to see that she enjoyed my company just as much as I enjoyed hers. Soon we were joined at the hip. Inseparable then, without so much as a warning, Vivi disappeared. The clubhouse was empty that Saturday morning. I looked around in a moment of confusion, because Vivi had told me the evening before that she would spend the night there. When I turned to one corner of the room, I saw something that hadn't been there before. It was a scarecrow. Sewn in burlap and stuffed with hay, it had a bulbous head with bundles of fiery red yarn for hair, green buttons for eyes, and a comically large grin painted on with a crude hand. Its sack body was dressed in Vivi's ratty green cardigan, with skinny little sticks protruding from the sleeves like arms. The blade of the old sickle was tied to one hand. I approached the scarecrow slowly, certain it was a prank from Vivi, or maybe one of the others. The green button eyes seemed to stare at me, grinning wide. "It looks just like you," I said loudly, just to make some noise to fill the silence. You did a great job, Vivi. Vivi didn't come out. Not from some clever hiding spot concealed by crates and craft supplies, not down the rope ladder hanging from the roof. August? Rex? No reply. I plopped down on the floor next to the scarecrow and prodded its burlap face. Whoever made this, the idea of your prank is lost on me, I muttered. Down in the fields, the birds began to chirp. Hours passed in an awkward stillness where I debated whether to go looking for Vivi in the fields or take a nap in the clubhouse instead. Late in the morning, August climbed into the clubhouse with a handful of green apples. Morning, Marina. He walked over to the snack crates and dumped the apples into one, seemingly disregarding the scarecrow. I cleared my throat. Hey, August? Yeah? Did you make this scarecrow? He turned to me, looked at the scarecrow, then tilted his head. You mean Vivi? I snorted. Very funny. August stared at me for a few long seconds. Is this some sort of prank? He asked. That's what I should be asking you, I snapped. Where did this scarecrow come from, and where's Vivi? The look of confusion on his face deepened. Marina, that's Vivi. The scarecrow. Jesus Christ. Where's Vivi the person, idiot? What do you mean, Vivi the person? I forced a shaky grin. This isn't funny, brave leader. Behind him, Rex climbed up into the clubhouse. Marina, why do you look so angry? Did you make this scarecrow, Rex? Rex frowned. You mean Vivi? No. The scarecrow that looks like Vivi. Is this some sort of new game we're playing? I gaped at the two boys, then at the scarecrow. Its button eyes gleamed in the sunlight. This is dumb, I muttered. I'm gonna go look for her. Look for who? I stared at Rex for a few seconds, trying to spot the slightest hint of a smile, but he only looked troubled. Vivi. I finally snapped. I'm going to look for Vivi, the person. I clambered down from the clubhouse and ran into the fields, shouting Vivi's name, stirring up flocks of sparrows that flew into the autumn sky. I must have scoured most of old Bearded Abel's fields, but Vivi didn't turn up. Only too late did I realize I had no idea where she lived. When I got back to the clubhouse near the evening, I half expected and half prayed that Vivi would be there, ready to laugh her sparrow laugh and tell me it was all just a prank. But the only one waiting for me was August, carving a stub of wood with a tiny pocket knife. Rex went home to do homework, he said. But, Marina, are you okay? This isn't a prank, I muttered. It's not, I promise. Just tell me what's wrong. My stomach growled loudly from running around the fields all day without anything to eat. August tossed me an apple, and I bit into it slowly. Vivi is a person, I said meekly. August pursed his lips. She knows how to throw a sickle and how to spot red-tailed hawks. She made that bow. See? I pointed my new bow, propped up against the wall. Marina. I made the bow, August said, snapping shut his pocket knife. My dad's been teaching me to whittle, remember? And you've always known how to spot red-tailed hawks. You're really good at that. That's why you're our eagle-eyed scout. But I know we've been playing pretend a lot. But you're starting to worry me, Marina. Vivi isn't actually a person. We just pretend she is. But where did the scarecrow come from then? We found it in the firewood pile in my dad's old barnyard. Remember? We named her Vivi, and we called her the Reaper in the Sunset because she had that sickle in her hand. That's not true, I cried. Vivi was a person, and we found her in the cornfield. August looked at me evenly. I stared back at him, still half expecting him to drop the facade and admit it was all a sickeningly elaborate prank, but he didn't. Finally, he sighed and got to his feet. Come on, he said. I'll take you home. I feel like you need a bit of rest. Maybe things will be clearer tomorrow. Things were not clear tomorrow, nor the day after that, nor the day after that. I kept having dreams of everything we did with Vivi, but when I went to the clubhouse early every day, all that was waiting was the scarecrow. Rex sometimes tried to bring along the scarecrow on our make-believe patrols, but August stopped him, said we shouldn't do that anymore. He looked at me concernedly, like he was afraid I still saw human laughter in Vivi's fake button eyes. I thought about throwing away the scarecrow, but I couldn't bring myself to. When my parents woke me up with their squabbling at dawn and I heard the sound of something breaking, I slipped out my window and walked to the clubhouse and sat in the corner with the scarecrow waiting for the sun to rise. The ratty green cardigan, dusty and stained from sitting in the firewood pile, smelled like dirt and harvest time. In the late morning, August climbed into the clubhouse holding a fresh green apple for me, and I held him for a long time and cried into his shirt. He smelled like soap and oatmeal with cinnamon, real human smells. "It's okay," he said quietly. "We're your friends, Rex and me. We'll help you get over this dream that you had." Later that evening, we walked the scarecrow to old Bearded Abel's barnyard and placed it at the top of the firewood pile. "Vivi is no more," August said solemnly. "It's just us now, the real raiders." In the dawn of September, Rex's family sold their farmland and moved to Arizona so that Rex could start school there. Before he left for good, we met at the clubhouse one last time, where he smothered August in a bear hug so strong that our brave leader let out a very indignant squeak. When he released August and walked over to me, his smile wavered and his arms around me felt gentler. Something slipped into the pocket of my threadbare jacket, and at the same time, Rex whispered into my ear, "Read it when you get home." Then he let me go, fixed the weakness in his smile, and sauntered out of the clubhouse without once looking back. My heart beat quickly. When I got home that evening, I pulled the slightly crumpled slip of paper out of my pocket and unfolded it to reveal a note. "Marina, I'm moving away to start a new life in Arizona. Last night, I swore to myself that in this new life I would never let anyone control me. Just like Vivi never let anyone control her, to the very end. I followed August like a loyal puppy. Always. I followed him because he was my friend. But what I forgot was that you are my friend too, and the Raiders Club, as make-believe as it was, always fought for justice. Vivi isn't in the firewood pile. She's buried outside old Bearded Abel's shed, where August stole 2 shotgun shells in the dead of night and shot them into Vivi's head, where he buried her in the dirt and brought me her clothes in the morning so that I would give him hay and burlap sacks and green buttons from my mom's sewing basket. I'm sorry, Marina. I knew you and Vivi shared something special. August knew too, but he wanted you all for himself. He ordered me to help our brave leader, and like an idiot I thought pretending Vivi never existed would make August happy. I was supposed to fight for justice, and I didn't do that. I'll understand if you never forgive me. I thought I would have some tearful goodbyes, but I can't think of anything to help anyone now. Just please, don't let August get to you. He can't be allowed to hurt anyone else. I'm sorry for failing you. Rex." The blisters on my hand burst and trickled blood and pus down the shaft of the shovel. But I kept digging. The sliver of moonlight and the sound of crickets and the cold autumn breeze that stroked the harvested cornfields whispered meaningless nothings into my head. I dug until my palms bled and the first rays of sunlight seeped over the horizon. And then I dug some more until I saw August walk out the back door of his house with old Bearded Abel, holding a towel and a bit of soap. Just then, the tip of my shovel pressed into something, and a strand of dusty red trailed out of the dirt. August saw me, and rubbed his bloodshot eyes like he had trouble discerning me from the nightmares Vivi's ghost gave him. Old Bearded Abel followed his son's gaze and spotted me. "Too, hey," he shouted, beginning to jog over. "What are you doing by my shed?" I slowly lowered myself onto the ground and touched the strand of red. The lock of fiery red hair with clumps of dirt and blood. Real human hair. Old Bearded Abel's eyes widened. Behind him, August trembled, slowly turning pale. "Marina, wait," I set down my shovel in the yellow grass. The rays of the morning sun swept over the fields, and with them the sparrows began their chirping laugh. "It's over," I said hoarsely. "Brave Sir Augustus, surrender yourself.